And once again, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Los Angeles Birders webinar for February 13th. We have a wonderful program in store. But before we get there, I just want to say, if you're a member of Lab, thank you very much. We appreciate your support and help. If you lead trips for us, if you present for us, thank you, thank you, thank you. We really appreciate it. All our webinars are live and recorded for future access, so please access away. It's wonderful. We have community science projects. We have a thriving student section, and for all those reasons, we would love you to help support LA Birders. And next. I no, we can go next. And with that, I'd like to introduce Andy Birch, who is a past member of the LA Birders board, and he will introduce Van for us. Andy?
Thank you. So Van's childhood was split between Cambria, California and Kodiak Island, Alaska, where he worked on his father's commercial salmon fishing boat for 8 years.
Wow.
After earning a degree in anthropology from UC Berkeley, he embarked on a successful career as a singer, musician, songwriter. His unique blend of folk and rock earned him appearances on television shows like Conan, CBS News Sunday Morning, and Last Call with Carson Daly. Van spent over 10 years on the road, touring all over the world, sadly for him, before he was a birder. In 2018, he shifted his career to work in public policy, where he worked on campaigns and for companies that could make a positive impact in the world. Somewhere in between, he discovered birding, and it changed his life. Now living in LA's Highland Park, he's fallen in love with the region's diverse habitats, jaw-dropping vagrant birds, and its vibrant and supportive birding community. He recently joined Kimball, Chris, Justin, and John as an eBird reviewer for LA County, so be nice to him when you next see him. Van lives and breathes birding. He is constantly exploring both on sea and land, up and down what is probably the best state, California. When Van seemed to quietly, or I don't know if it was accidentally, start his California big year at some point well into the year, I heard about it secondhand, and I was instantly hooked, as he was already off to a great start with a number of incredible wintering vagrants that were gracing Southern California that winter. I was texting him many evenings. Maybe he was on the road at the time, not wanting to get those texts, but I was always wondering if he got whatever bird it was that he was looking for. I'm someone who hates driving long distances, and I don't have the ability to drop everything. So it was great to live vicariously through Van's birding exploits. And I was in awe of his, persistence and perseverance to try for the same birds over and over and over again until eventually he saw them. So with that, I pass it over to Van to describe the highs and lows of birding a California big year.
Thank you, Andy. Really appreciate that. And thanks to everybody at LA Birders. I've watched pretty much, I think, every one of these webinars. A huge fan. And so it's cool to be on the other side of it. Most of the webinars, or a lot of them, are like really, amazing, detailed descriptions for identification and scientific stuff. This one's different. This is going to be kind of just more fun. Going to take you on kind of a, trip through the year last year. And with that, I will share my screen. Make sure this is working. Go to slideshow mode. Is that all looking fine there?
It's looking great.
All right. So, chasing 500, what does that mean? We'll get to that part in a little bit. But I was thinking about if I was watching a thing on like a Rhode Island big year, a New York big year, I'd be really curious about, what kind of birds they struggled with and what were normal and what were whatever. Or if I was someone who was just on YouTube trying to figure out what, you're talking about, I'd wonder what is a big year. So what is a big year? If you Google big year, this is probably going to be the first image that comes up, which is a surprisingly not terrible movie starring Jack Black, Steve Martin, Owen Wilson, and others as they do, a big year. But I found the Wikipedia definition to be extremely good. Like, I didn't change a word, copy and pasted from Wikipedia. A big year is a personal challenge or an informal competition among birders who attempt to identify as many species of birds as possible by sight or sound within a single calendar year and within a specific geographic area. It's kind of insane. It's like, before I was a birder, I don't think I'd ever heard of the concept. And when I started, thinking about towards the end of 2022 that I wanted to do a big year for California, I was dealing with a lot of the existential questions myself. And as I started to tell, my girlfriend, my parents, my family, my friends, most of which are not birders, one theme kept coming back, and that was why do that? Which I thought was a very fair question. There's no prize, you don't get $1 million or you don't even get $10. It's, costs money to travel around. There's all kinds of reasons not to. What are the reasons to do it? And I just personally felt like there was this sort of like calling to do it. I can't explain it much more than that. I also wanted to, I got into birding relatively late in my adult life. In my, early to mid 30s. And so there's a lot of like catching up that I feel like I have to do and want to do. And so I wanted to use the California big year as like a forcing function, kind of to explore parts of the state that I've never been, meet birders that I've, never met in different parts of the state, learn about different habitats, learn about the status and distribution of, where certain species exist that are only in this part of California, or only in that part of California. And the more I thought through it, once I really started thinking about it, it was just obvious to me that I had to do it. I really felt that way towards the end of 2022. But I had a full-time job. And so, it brought up this question of goals. What are my goals here? So California big year, right? Trying to see as many species as you can within California within a year. And so I looked on, it's hard to find information about historic records or whatever. There's no like official list or whatever other than eBird, which has their top 100. And we'll get to like what counts as a species and stuff a little later. But you can, look on top 100 for the state or the county or whatever, and look in previous years and kind of get a sense of what would be a great job. And as I looked back for the last 30 years just on eBird, understanding that, 30 years ago, not everybody was using eBird, obviously, and blah, blah, blah. But I did see that there was only one time ever that someone had over 500 species on the eBird top 100. And that was in 2015, John Sterling. And on the eBird totals at the time, anyway, with splits and lumps and stuff, it's always changing, but it's 509. So I thought, and no one else has 500 on eBird. So I was like, okay, that's a pretty clean, pretty easy, nice number. So that's my goal, 500. But what counts? What birds to count? Hot topic, it's a hot topic. But deeply, philosophically, in way down there, the truth to me is that literally any way you want to count birds is 100% correct, and you're doing a great job. That's number one. All the other stuff is like fun to get into if you're into it, but you don't have to. And you could count anything you want on your list, personal list. It's fine. It's yours. It's your list. I know people that count whatever, escape things. That's awesome. Like whatever. None of it really matters. Like there's like this kind of seriousness that comes into play. But really, it's like just should be fun. We're literally just talking about observing birds. We're just like, it's fine. Everyone is doing a great job. I will say, though, that when you're doing a big year, you need some kind of, metrics to figure out what you want to count. So the first way to count birds is like the eBird countable. So that's everything that's on your eBird top 100, your eBird life list, your county list, anything under sightings list. The number, the headline number, will be all of the native birds, the introduced and established birds, as well as provisional species, which are either introduced bird species that haven't yet been established per the local record committee or etc., or they could be a native species that arrived from uncertain provenance, meaning we don't know where they came from, etc. And so that I like that. Personally, that's my favorite category, the eBird countable one, because I like counting more things, because it makes me feel better, and also it's just more fun. And I don't know, why not? Like the blue-crowned parakeets in San Diego are like so beautiful. I'd like to count those. But the more I went through the year, the more I kept hearing from people, about the officially countable stuff. And so basically what that means is it's all the stuff that's on eBird countable except not the provisional stuff. So it's either native species or an introduced species that has, typically it's different for different states and everything, but like typically has been breeding locally for 10 or 15 years and has a population size that is stable enough, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then the state records committee will put that on a checklist. So for California, the California Bird Records Committee has the official California checklist of all the birds that count, in air quotes. And then some people like counting no introduced birds at all. That's not me. It just doesn't resonate with me. Maybe it's just because I love parrots so much, but it's just kind of murky too. Because like, what do you do about California condor? Those reintroduced, or what do you do about like trumpeter swan, where some of those are probably reintroduced, or it's just, I don't know. But if that's your vibe, go for it. Like all of it's fine and all of it's good. But for the sake of this talk, when I talk about like the numbers that I'm at or whatever throughout the course of the year, we'll be talking about this one, like the officially countable one. But I'm important to remember that it doesn't matter, and 100% your list is your list, and you're doing a great job is the main thing. So California, is a quick side note, I went on all the state records committee's websites and looked and saw their official list. Number one, not unsurprisingly, Texas, I'm gonna run for it. I don't know, some of those might be a little off or whatever, just like write in the comments if you're mad. So before I started the year, I knew I was gonna do a big year, but I felt kind of embarrassed, or I felt kind of like I didn't want to tell anyone. And with a full-time job, it's like there's only so much I can do. But I did a lot of preparing, and I created this Google sheet that I'm happy to share, where I copied it. I did all this manually, copied over from eBird and the CBRC's website, which is amazing, by the way. Looking at other state records committees' websites, like, we are very lucky, and they do a fantastic job at the CBRC. But basically, it just goes by family and taxonomical order. The check mark is if it's a review species, meaning that's like rare enough that the CBRC is going to vote on it. ABA is like for the ABA area, if it's rare. Status is a thing that I just made up because there's like, I made it up by like the number of records per year or whatever. It goes R1 through R5 for rare stuff, and blah, blah, blah. The county is last records in the CBRC. The reason I did this is because I knew that, first of all, at the end of the year, there's a lot of rare stuff around. You know, there's some stuff up in Arcadia, there's some stuff down here. There's some stuff like, what am I going to prioritize with my limited time and resources? What is the rarest thing that I need to get? And if something pops up, like, how can I quickly check, like, how rare is, do I need to get in the car right now and blast off to Monterey, or, you know, can I chill for a little bit? So that's why I made this this sheet that I'm happy to share at the end. And then it's off to the races. So basically now we're going to take you through January to December. Basically, the map that you'll see at the beginning of each month, that shows where I birded that month. Each one is a hotspot or a personal hotspot. And at the end, or on the side there, I'll, you know, say where I was at, just to make it kind of, you know, fun. Yeah, kind of fun. Even though you could just Google what I ended up with. January ended up with 234 species, which actually isn't like a lot for 1 month, but I was mainly focused on specific ones. And we'll go on a little tour. But the very first bird I want to talk about is snowy owl, which I saw on January 1st. All the photographs are mine, taken by me, unless noted. Oh, and Mark Wilson, I forgot to text you, but I'm using a couple of your photos. I assume that's okay. I have your name written. I appreciate it, bud. I forgot. Snowy owl. This, I mean, it's incredible. Look at this animal. I mean, it's insane. It's massive. Its eyes are yellow. It's on a roof in Orange County. Eventually, as I think most people know, the CBRC, you know, voted to not approve it based on, you know, some members, you know, being uncertain of the provenance, given that there wasn't an eruption this year, et cetera. You know, I don't have any strong opinions on it, to be honest myself. I just really loved this bird. I loved going to see this bird. I went like 4 times. The crowd of people, like, were generally very peaceful. I had my scope set up, and these parents would like pick up their kids, and I had my phone scope thing so they could just look in the phone and see it. And like watching these kids look at this image of this thing that's in real life and seeing their faces like light up was like, this is the whole reason that we do, like, this is what we need. We need more people to want to know about birds, because then people will want to protect birds. You can't want to protect things that you don't know exist, because you don't know they exist. It's not your fault. Anyway, so this ended up not counting in the total numbers that we'll share, but it is in the eBird camel. But it's just an incredible, incredible animal. And so I have some videos in here that, you know, will maybe work. This one seems to be loading, but it was just like so fun to watch it. Look at its head. Look at it. It's like, oh, so gorgeous and vicious at the same time. It's just like, oh, what a beast. Oh, hello. Oh my God, that little beak. Oh. Anyway, all these are on the my YouTube as well. Next up, Mexican duck. For all my non-birder friends, you might be looking at that and thinking that looks like a duck, and it is a duck, confirmed. Mexican duck, which is very similar to mallard, was considered the same species for a time. but it was its own distinct species for like, I don't know, 100 years before that. And then from 1983 to 2020, it was treated as a subspecies of mallard. Now again, as Mexican duck, there have only been, I believe, 17 records in the state confirmed by the CBRC, and some of those were specimens from hunters. It's a very rare bird. Likely there are more than that, but because it's difficult to ID in some ways, and because it was only a subspecies for a while, you know, it's probably part of it, but it's rare. This bird was in Orange County at this small little park. It came back for 3 winters. It was so fun to go see it. And it died, you know, that yellow bill, it's like, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. Pretty good bird. And it was just so fun. I had to go January 1st because I knew that it was very rare. It was an R4 or whatever on my scale. So I saw a snowy owl on that on the 1st. On the 2nd, I drove up to Inyo County, Lone Pine. My dear friend Russell had this bird come to his freaking yard, streak-backed oriole. I mean, that's a rare bird. 11 state, like this was the 11th state record ever in California, ever. There haven't been any LA records as far as I know, and if there's any errors, I'm sure people will say it at the end, and we'll answer questions at the end too also. But that was in his yard for 4 months, this bird. Only 11th state record ever, and he had it in his yard for 4 months. And one day in his yard, he had, on the same day, he had hooded bullocks, streak-backed, and I want to say Scots or something. Like he had like a 4 or 5 oriole day. Anyway, incredible bird, just chowing down on the suet like a beast. King Eider. This was a bird, 2 birds. Very rare on the, about 50 records for the state, or give or take. There were 2 birds together, and they were in Ventura. And then the same 2 were later seen in San Francisco County on February 10th, and then Monterey County after that. By like April 13th, they were still hanging out in Monterey. My friend Otto and I dipped on this late in 2022, even like convinced someone to let us use their kayaks. So we kayaked around this spot and didn't see it, but then it was refound. And it was so cool. I love seeing birds from a pier looking down, seeing them swim underwater. It's just amazing. Greater peewee, pretty rare, 55-ish state records. This is all a little handful of LA records, including Griffith Park. So for us East Siders, I think it's always something we need to be on the lookout for. This bird was in San Diego County. Yellow-billed loon has been in the news here in LA recently. I just had one in LA. This one was in San Diego County, so I went down and got it the same day. I was always trying to figure out how to use the less gas as possible. You know, I knew it was going to be a long year, so any kind of combining. Later in the month, January 20th, this bird, look at that bird. That is extraordinarily cute. Snow bunting, San Mateo County. It's about 100, 120 records statewide, but most of them are up Northern California. There's only 1 LA record, and it was on San Clemente Island. But this would be, it's pretty cool to show up in LA. This was an extremely charismatic bird, just hanging out on the beach, doing its thing, like it owned the place, like it was hanging out with plovers and gulls, and it did not care about you. And it was just being cute and being awesome. And the bill, it's just so small and so cute. It was hard to leave. Mark Wilson, photo of yours. Same day, timed it to go up for this bird, red-flanked bluetail. This is a mega, as they call it, star, mega, 6th state record ever. It was present for 3 months in Santa Cruz County. It was only the 2nd record on the mainland of California. The other 4 were all on islands, 3 on the Farallon Islands of San Francisco, 1 in LA County, San Clemente. And the other inland record was in LA. 2018 to 2019, but that was, I wasn't around for that as a birder, sadly. So this bird was cool. Brief views, but it was, I mean, it's cool. Thick-billed kingbird, January 24th. There's one of these right now as we speak in Griffith Park, but it's a very rare bird. It's about only 35 to 40 state records. This bird was in San Bernardino County. They typically return over and over and over. There was a bird in San Diego that returned for 11 winters. The same individual bird. That's something always that blows people's minds, mine included, but especially non-birders. This concept that this individual bird will hang out like for a whole winter or whatever, then migrate, you know, hundreds of thousands of miles away or whatever, and then the same individual will come back to the same exact freaking park in San Bernardino County, let's say, even though it's not even close to, it's whatever. It's just incredible. And this bird is very vocal and very fun to watch. Oh, Perluxia, give me a break. I mean, look at that thing. It's like a cardinal, but kind of messed up. Kind of like it's been in the desert too long. This is January 24th, Riverside County. About 30 to 35 state records, so pretty rare. There are 2 LA records in 1983 in the Antelope Valley and 2013 in Palos Verdes. So something to keep your eye out for. Perluxia, it's a combination of the 2 words that mean kind of flame colored and crooked, but definitely one of the coolest sounding bird names, if I do say so myself. Perluxia. And the whole thing, look at the friggin' hair, the feathers on top of its head. Like it's just amazing. So these are all birds that had already been found in late 2022. And during January, I was doing cleanup. I was going around getting all these rare birds that were around and found that were hanging out before it was too late, before they left. Then in February, added 47 species, got up to 281 by the end of the month. There wasn't a ton of new stuff in February. One really cool thing was this little stint, but the video has seemed to disappear, but that's fine. That's weird. Now it's paused. Weird. Oh, there, here we go. Hopefully this is working out. It looks like it's working on my end. That is a little stint. San Jacinto Wildlife Area. It was so fun to watch this bird. There was one in San Diego, you know, for a while, for several years now, but it's all distant views and hard to pick it out from the other peeps. But this bird was like 8 feet away, 10 feet away, and I took this video through a phone scope thing through my scope on my phone. About 40 state records, 2 in LA, one at Willow Street for 2 days, and then one at Paiute in 2011. It's just so fun to watch it bounce around. It's just moving differently. If you're looking at a group of 30 or 40 peeps, it pops out. It's got a little pep in its step. It means business. Little stint. That was really the only big thing in February. In March, you could see stayed in SoCal. Haven't been up far north yet. You know, ended with 317, added 36 species. This is one of them. Island scrub jay on Santa Cruz Island, Santa Barbara County. I mean, this bird is the most range restricted species of any bird in definitely in the US and Canada. I'm not sure about Mexico because of like Guadalupe Junco and stuff, but definitely in the US and Canada. And it's different. Like, it's like, you know, that bill, it means business. And just in general, any excuse to go over to the Channel Islands, we are so lucky and so fortunate to like right outside our doorstep have these incredible islands that we can go see for relatively cheap. is amazing. And so this is, you know, it's got to be one that you go get. It's only on that one island in the Channel Islands. This is my friend Otto giving the thumbs up. Look, I mean, this is Santa Cruz Island. This is gorgeous. Just absolutely gorgeous. A lot of endemic plant species as well, and just highly encouraged. Just highlighting some of my favorite spots as we go through too. Then the tundra bean goose, March 6th. A lot of viewers are kind of keenly aware of this bird. It was an amazing saga. This video I took on the first day that it was discovered, I believe by Jonathan Feenstra, who somehow just saw it flying overhead and knew immediately that it was a bean goose and called it in. Like, that was awesome. I don't know. That was just amazing. But this is one of the rarest birds that I saw in 2023 that we all did. A 6th state record. It was from early March to early July. It was in the Antelope Valley in LA County. And then it was gone for 2 weeks and everyone thought it was gone. And then it reappeared at Irvin Magic Johnson Park in the Los Angeles basin. And then was later captured by a rehabilitation center. And I actually don't quite know exactly where it is now. But it was there until November. So it spent from all March to November in LA County. There it is with some other geese, and it was pretty thrilling to see. Definitely not one that was, you know, on the list of expectations when I was starting tundra bean goose. This was a big one, wood sandpiper. Huge shout out to Tony Metcalf for organizing this. This is another Mark Wilson photo. Basically, this bird was found. It's extremely rare, only the 4th state record, the rarest bird of the year at that point. And the others in Kern, San Diego, Humboldt. But it was found at a private hunting club that, you know, you couldn't go there. But Tony was able to, you know, arrange 2 different days. I couldn't go the first one because it was like Christmas Eve or something like that, and the year before, in 2022. But then March, it was still there, and he organized another one. And you know, I show up, and it's just amazing. It was like Woodstock. There were so many cars. It was so cool. It was like, I don't know how many people, over 100 people, right? Like so many people or more. I don't know. It seemed like a lot to me. And I think Daniel Irons was the first one, of course, that spotted it. But it was really fun and definitely one of the rarest top 5 rarest birds of the year, easily in the state. In April, you'll see this weird line going up the coast. What is that about? Goes up all the way. That is because of a repositioning cruise that I went on. The TLDR, basically cruise ships, sometimes they need to get their boats from one place to another without all the, you know, stuff they usually do with people who go on cruise ships. So they just need to get there really fast. Birders figured out, like, I don't know, in the 70s or before, 80s, I don't know, that you could get on these and they ride really far offshore, you know, up to 100 miles offshore, and you can scope even in rough seas because the boat's so big. And it's an opportunity to see some really cool stuff for so cheap. It was like 4 nights, all your food. And I'd never wanted to go on a cruise. I had never been, no interest in cruises, but this was like, of course I have to do this in a big year. And 4 nights, it was like $380 for all your food in the room. It was like so insane. And like, here's a view of, there were 50 to 60 birders on it, set up on both port and starboard. We had walkie-talkies going from each side, you know, if they saw something, we try to run through the boat. And it was just so fun. A lot of people from LA County was there. Chris was there. A lot of folks, Becky and Steve Turley from Orange. So it was so fun. And yeah, you just had your scope set up. There's John Garrett dialed in right there on the binos. But you know, typically, look at this. I mean, like, incredible scenery. This was the only picture I could find of the room, but I wanted to highlight how cool the rooms were. This is a very frightening photograph, so I'm sorry, I should have warned you. I believe I'm just noticing my socks hanging up behind me because they're probably wet from being outside. And this is a typical view of the birds. Now, it's not like a pelagic where you're getting it right up there, like they're far away, but you know, you zoom in and be like, oh, that's their drone. Okay, here we go. And it was during this time, while on this cruise, that I got news that I worked for a tech company at the time, and they announced via email that they, you know, were cutting my position and our team mostly entirely. And so I was all of a sudden, you know, without a job. Which was really obviously a bummer because jobs make you money, but also, you know, when you're doing a big year, it's kind of like pretty good to not have a job. And it was a really good place to be for the next couple of days, just hanging out with other birders, being on a boat, and just like a lot of time to think and ponder. And at that point, I committed to going all in on the year and just going as hard as I can, because now I have to. I feel like on the cruise we had an insane number of stuff. You can pause this and write on YouTube and, you know, just jot down that trip report. The joy of incredible simplicity of eBird trip reports, but you can see the number of Murphy's petrels was the highlight for sure. May added 28 species, getting up there a little bit, some Inyo, Mono County. At this point, I want to do a quick plug for Bear Divide, which I went to up through May. Bear Divide is an incredible place, and it's in LA County, and I just really strongly recommend it for visible migration, just for anything. I'm not personally like a religious person, but the way people talk about going to church and feeling like they're, you know, with the God or something, like that's how I feel at Bear Divide. This is like pre-sunrise. It's just absolutely incredible. That's me set up there, just watching birds migrating overhead. Don Ryan did a great webinar that's available as well. And this day, Chef Ito made us these like awesome vegan tacos. You can go to beardivide.org to learn more. But I just wanted to give that a shout because I spent a lot of time at Bear Divide this past year. Not really the big year, just because it was like mental health #1. It was like, you got to go to Bear Divide. Then I went birding with my sister. That's my sister Sophie in San Luis Obispo County, where we're from. And I was kind of joking because I was like, oh, it's your first eBird report. I wonder, you know, we'll probably something. Maybe we'll find something good. But I didn't even bring my camera. I was like, whatever. It's more of a sister-brother walk. And all of a sudden, I see this weird thrasher. And I'm like, hold up now. Sophie, get out your phone because it's better than mine. Try to capture this. I'm freaking out. And I'm like, that's a brown thrasher. Very few records in San Luis Obispo County, maybe under 5, definitely under 10. It had been a while since one was seen. I had no cell phone service there. I didn't have my camera. I was like freaking out. Sophie, my sister, was like, is this birding? I was like, not usually, but rushed back, and a bunch of people went and tried for it later today, and it was never seen again. But that was definitely one of the most thrilling moments of the year for me. Also just because I got to share it with the sister. That might still be her only report. Go out with a bang. You know, why not? Nope, going to the next one. June, added 9 species only. June, wasn't so great. June gloom. However, it did have probably the biggest moment of the year for me, and it started at this Franklin's Gull at Bayona, which is a beautiful bird. Just, obviously completely stunning bird, and I was just there to see it. And stayed for a while as a canvas, found it I think the previous day, then got back in my car and was just looking at the eBird list, making sure to note all the things, note the weather, all that important stuff, where I covered and all that. And then I looked out the window while sitting in my Prius, and I saw a thing flying way off in the distance. And I thought to myself, that's a turkey vulture. I don't have one on the list. I'll put it on the list. But I'll take a picture just in case, it's a zone-tailed or something. I zoom in, yeah, that's turkey vulture. And then I noticed a second raptor. And I was like, wait a minute, that is not a turkey vulture. And nor is that anything that would be normal. Immediately took this picture, zoomed in, and was like, yeah, that's a crescent caracara. None had been seen anywhere in the state since 2016. So it'd been 8 years or so. This year, there have been a couple now, but at that point, it had been a while. It was like my friends and I would talk about it, like, oh, wouldn't that be so cool to see one in California? I knew that one had been seen at that site, like 20 years before or something like that. So it was in the back of my mind, but certainly, obviously, the furthest thing I expected. It's almost like impossible to say much more than like, that's an insane bird to see in California, at least for me. It like really blew my mind. I got out of my car and there were birders arriving to see the Franklin's Gull. And I was like, hey, I was so frantic. I was like, there's a crested caracara, but they're like dialed into the Franklin's Gull, and they're probably like, who the heck is this guy? Like, what was a crested caracara? Yeah, right, whatever. And I'm like, I'm freaking out, and I'm like posting on the WhatsApp and the listserv and eBird, trying to get a list, just like trying to get as many people to come as possible. It's like, oh my god. And finally, and then I had to leave because I had other plans, but people came, I lost it and then found it again, and then it was gone. But then people did see it later that day. And it was just so thrilling. I mean, finding your own quote unquote rare bird is obviously like the best feeling. But it's like few and far between a lot of the times. But this was probably, if people ask me like, what was the #1 highlight of the year, this was probably it. In some way, in a lot of ways. Kentucky warbler, what a bird. This guy found this bird while he was driving by. It was singing so loudly. Dan Maxwell found it. He just was driving by and it was singing so loudly that he was like, huh? Kentucky warbler. Beautiful bird. On to July. We're trying to get through this, so we can get to Q&A if there's anything. Ended with 414. Including this red-eyed vireo in my 5MR patch. Beautiful bird singing at Rio de Los Angeles State Park along the river. Black-backed woodpecker, Tulare County. My family had a cabin in the Sequoia National Forest, National Monument in Tulare County that burned completely to the ground in the SQF complex fire in 2020, I believe. And that gone. Like I have so many of my best childhood memories and adult memories of that place. And then, you go back and it's just gone. It's so wild, the impact of fire. These guys like fire. They like dead trees. They like that stuff. And so I was with my parents when I went and saw this bird, and it was a really cool moment, like a healing moment. From the sadness losing the cabin, but then look at this bird. It's like so creepy, and it's like creeping around. It's like it doesn't even sound like another woodpecker. It's like so cool. I mean, this one's insane. I'm sure a lot of you saw this, hopefully. This was, I mean, extremely rare. I lost my notes for it, but I think it was the fifth state record, and only the second one that was chaseable. The prior one was 1985. Only one other record other than that anywhere in the US or Canada, I believe, which was in Seattle, like Washington State, Seattle area. This showed up in Santa Barbara on a beach. And but then someone lost it, but I just immediately started driving. Because it wasn't being seen, but I was like, I have to be on location, if it shows back up, and it did. And it was only present there for one day. And then I think it was a couple months later, what's been, I'm pretty sure, decided was the same individual bird was seen for one day on San Mateo. Nocturnal gull. How awesome is that? Look at those big eyes. Eat squid, I think. That's amazing. It's just shockingly gorgeous. Heermann's gull is still my number one in my heart forever, but this bird is pretty amazing. But I was looking through my photos and I realized that even while the swallowtail gull was there, I had more pictures of the little baby snowy plovers because they're just so so perfect. July. Still in July. This thing, or maybe I was a little out of order there anyway, but we're in July. Red-headed woodpecker. Look at this bird. Look at this freaking bird. That's in California. That's in San Francisco. The 6th state record ever. The last one before this was 1999. The first record ever was a dead bird found in Los Angeles County in 1962. This is the first San Francisco County bird. There's other records in Imperial, Santa Barbara, Marin, Del Norte. But when I drove up from LA with Desi, and initially we were going somewhere else, and I had asked my girlfriend if we could borrow her car, which was much nicer than my car. She said yes, but then this thing happened and we just kept driving, and I felt very guilty for not asking her for the extension of the trip, but it was like she understood. She was very, very supportive and understanding throughout the year. But this was unbelievable. I still can't believe that I saw a red-headed woodpecker in California. Mississippi kite, another one found by Russell, my homie in Inyo County in Lone Pine. This bird, just incredible. My first time seeing this bird anywhere. And it was, there's about 70-ish records or something. It's rare, not crazy rare, but very rare. There's 7 records in LA, by the way. So something to keep in mind, especially in Palos Verdes, where South Coast Botanic Garden has 4 records, which I believe are all different birds, which is insane. Or at least most of them, or all of them. Mississippi kite, really fun to watch this bird. Spent a few hours with it that morning. Pelagics need to be a part of the big year. This is one of the boats we took out of Dana Point. We got David, Andy, we saw earlier, Lauren, Naresh, Mark, Marky, Mark, 2 Marks and a Marky, Chris, and me. We took this thing out, just thinking, see what we'll see. And then we get out there and boom, red-billed tropic bird, LA County. Came to our boat, circled our boat like what felt like 30 times, I don't know, before eventually going off in the distance. But incredible bird to see, especially with such a tight crew on a small boat. Really amazing. There were also a ton of Cook's petrels on that trip, double digits, I believe. Beautiful birds. Later saw American goshawk, El Dorado County. These are 3 young birds that were begging. Tough bird to see, other than during the breeding season when it's a little easier. There was an adult also flying around, just like hectically trying to get food. Very fun. I was up there with Lauren. It's It's a beefy bird. Next up, I'm trying to just go a little quicker now because I'm looking at time, but Farallon Islands, this is in San Francisco County. My first time ever, you can't just go onto the island, but you can take boats and look at the birds. It's incredible. Like, it's highly recommended. Like, I felt like I was on another planet, like a sci-fi movie from the 60s or something. Like, amazing. And, occasionally there's like, scientists are always here, and they have, as a hotspot, way more species than any other hotspot, I believe, in the US or Canada. It can have, 250,000, 400,000 common mirrors there breeding, just incredible stuff. But the main reason that I went during the big year, other than to see all this amazing stuff, was a bird hiding at the top right there, northern gannet. The first and only northern gannet ever seen in California. But this dude has been here for 12 years, nearly. Goes back and forth between Farallon Islands and like San Mateo County spots. It apparently was like trying to impress a Brant's cormorant in a way, and maybe start thinking about doing something because it's lonely. It's the only one. It showed up here 12 years ago or so, and it just hung out. It's just here. They named it, I think, but I don't know the name. Also, a lot of tufted puffins there on the Farallons, which is obviously amazing. August, we're getting up there. 431, we're getting close to 500. Yellow-footed gull, Imperial County, Salton Sea, one of those that you just need to go get. It's only in a certain time of the year, only in the summer. It's like a western gull, but it's got yellow feet. This bird happened to be there, flying around. It's a tricolored heron's a really, really rare bird. There's 100, 125 records, so it's not super rare, but I found this one there. It was there. I don't know. Salton Sea is just magical in that way. It's like you just never know. I think it was seen maybe one other time next week, but just incredible, incredible bird. And then Hurricane Hillary, which became Tropical Storm Hillary. And we all know what happened. Incredible story of seabirds being essentially blown up from the Gulf of Mexico to inland, Southern California, landing on inland lakes. I was at the Salton Sea when it hit, the day after, with Chris, Dean, and Guy McCaskey, Curtis, and Brian Daniels, and it was amazing. It was amazing to see. It was the first record for Imperial County, and then the next morning saw this bird in LA County, and this one got better looks at. And I know some of y'all saw like, I don't know, millions of them there, but there was, I think, only this one left when I was there the next morning. But we were watching the bird, me, John Dunn, and Chris were watching the bird. All of a sudden it took off and it started flying high, and it just kept going. We were trying to stay on it with the binos. And then John said something like, in a calm voice, like something like, "I think we are witnessing this bird leaving," which felt like very, very poetic, Leonard Cohen-esque. And then it was just gone. Chris stayed on it longer than anyone, and it just disappeared into the clouds. Then a couple days later, this thing was, around for a few days. San Bernardino County, Big Bear Lake, magnificent frigate bird, just an absolutely massive bird. I think the third longest wingspan of North American birds. I want to say North Mexico, other than condor and white pelican, maybe. But I was just like right under this tree watching this thing for an hour or more, and people were coming by like, "What are you doing?" I was like trying to explain and looking through the scopes, like, "Wow, I thought it was an eagle," like. This was an amazing experience, being able to just study this bird for a long time, just perched in a tree. Then it would fly around, and it was also blown in from later Tropical Storm Hillary. Frigate bird. Magnificent frigate bird. There's a few other species. This is magnificent. Wood stork, Ventura County, showed up. Santa Cruz spreading grounds, dinosaur. That is a dinosaur. There's no way you can convince me that that's not a dinosaur. I know all birds are dinosaurs and people say that and stuff, but this is like, that's a dinosaur. Look at its thing. Look at it's doing its thing. I mean, look at the beak. It's like, it's hilarious and gorgeous at the same time. I was very lucky to that the year fell on one of those. Back to on to September. Hang with me here. We're almost done. 4:54. Had to drive finally all the way up north. All the way up north to Del Norte. I always thought they would say Del Norte, but the locals call it Del Norte for common greenshank. This was a very rare bird, the second record ever in the state. The first one did return for 2 years, 2 different years, but this I was very, very happy to see. Not great footage, but it's kind of like a yellow legs, but like a little different and messed up. And it was definitely worth the drive, even though it was a very, very long drive. October, now we're going up again. Look up all the way up there. Added 22 species. Wedge-tailed shearwater, that they had been seen a couple times in SoCal. I was not on the right boats. I was getting very grumpy about it. But then finally, on a boat of Alvaro's that he took out, there were 2. I only saw this one, but really incredible bird, huge wings. You could see it shearing the water literally there, which, you know, that's a cool name, Shearwater. That's a very cool name. But prior to 2023, there are 12 state records ever. And I think 3 have now been accepted by the CBRC. This one's still awaiting review, but looks good. Then the next day, that day, this gargany was found in Humboldt. So I was just going to come back to LA, but I was already in Marin. So I was like, all right, let's keep going. Go up to Humboldt and saw this gargany, which was very cool on a rainy day. This I put in just because I love spotted doves. Look how beautiful that dove is. That's all I'm going to say. Just look at that dove. Also in Humboldt, went back up, met my parents because they were going through Canada J, a bad picture, but one of the only spots, you know, you can get them in California is in that very upper northwest corner there. Very cool bird, very vocal. And then this bird. A different jay, not the one I was expecting. I got a text from my friend Frank 3 hours before my flight back to LA. Said, I hope you're still in Humboldt. I said, why? He sent me this checklist. This homeowner had just posted this eBird checklist with this bird. And my parents were with me. I said, let's go immediately. So we got there at like 30 minutes and no one's there. And I'm just like walking and, you know, trying to be nice. And I see her and she's like, what are you doing? And I was like, I saw your report, you know, being very nice. And she's like, how did you get here so fast? And I was like, well, you know, it's really rare. She's like, I think the bird's gone, but you can stay and wait. I was like, oh, okay, great. And then 20 minutes later, I mean, it's a blue jay. 11th state record ever, I believe. No, 19th, sorry, 19th state record. Sorry, where am I? 19th state record. It was gone the next day. So only me and the homeowner were the only ones to see it, unfortunately. I wish that it stuck around for a while, but look at those feathers. November, whew, a lot of friggin' hot spots there. That was a busy month. Great shearwater. This was a huge one, 17th state record, very rare bird. There were like 20 of us jumping up and down and hugging each other and screaming when we saw this. Was nowhere near, you know, on our list. And there it was, great shearwater. Then on Thanksgiving, these are my parents. And my dad, I don't know what he's doing with the spray bottle, but, you know, he's got to have a problem. My mom's got a clipboard because she's writing the birds down for me, which is so cute. And we're in Kern County to see condors because I hadn't seen one yet. Because I, you know, thought, why not see it later in Thanksgiving with my folks? This one flew over our heads. Number 20. You know, you can look it up. Each individual. This one is amazing. It's the oldest living condor in the wild. It's like 43 or 44 years old. It was one of the final surviving, it is one of the final surviving birds. It was born in the wild. So they captured all the condors remaining, you know, in the mid 80s. This one was born before that. So this is an OG bird born in the wild, like way back then. They captured the bird in 1985. And he was in captivity for 30 years, had 30 chicks that were successfully released into the wild. And then 2015, they re-released him to the same spot, and he immediately like flew to his old nest or something like that, his site, and he's still just hanging out. Flew right over our heads. Incredible moment. When we read about it, my mom and I both started crying. Rufus-backed robin. Don't need to say much. It's got devil eyes and it's beautiful. November 25th at Big Morongo. Scissor-tailed flycatcher. If you told me this was, before I was a birder, if you told me that this was a real bird and not a Dr. Seuss bird, I would not believe you. And look at, it's amazing. Birds are incredible, just as a reminder. Then I had to go all the way back up to Humboldt, but for good reason. Purple gallinule. I mean, the pictures don't do it justice. 7th state record ever, first county record. It was there from November 24th to December 30th, and hasn't been seen since, I don't think. But it was at this point walking around all over, like just right in front of us, like 4 feet in front of us. It's like a rainbow bird thing. Roxanne Piper, another one you can kind of only get up there usually. December, the final stretch. So we're, you know, before we're at 490, I'm like, oh yeah, it'll be easy to get up to 500 at this rate, but it wasn't. I went a long time at 499. This winter wren, I think it was 499 in Imperial County. And then my boy Danny, this guy is just a guy in Long Beach who has a boat, who's an amazing guy. And I was on a lot of pelagics that were scheduled to go out for blue-footed booby, which are resident usually on Santa Barbara Island. They all got canceled because of rain. But I was texting with Danny, and he got a boat out there, and we went out there, and it was not very nice out. It was very rough and, you know, hard to see, but that is a blue-footed booby. It was bird number 500 with the, you know, the official checklist. And so it was so cool, so satisfying to, I don't know, the feet are just amazing. So yeah, blue-footed booby. We also saw brown boobies. I think we're the first ever boat to go birding there in December, because it's a crazy thing to do. And no one had captured this on photos yet. This time, I was told anyway, of, you know, breeding, nesting of brown boobies on Santa Barbara Island. Final 2 birds of the year. December 29th, field sparrow, drove all the way up to Humboldt again. This is just, you know, if you're a non-birder and stuff, you're like, that's a bird. But 23rd state record, really rare. Lucas Stevenson found it. Shout out to my boy Rob Fowler, who like met me there. And this was number 502. 502. So maybe Bluefoot Boo is 501. Can't remember. But this is 502. And then on my way back, I mean, it's running out of time, December 29th, but December 30th, Black-headed Gull was found in Santa Cruz the day before, and met my boy Frank, and saw this, and this was the final bird of the year, which was number 503. So the goal of 500, got it, 503. And eBird Cannibal was 517. And a beautiful bird to end on. And yeah, thank you so much for going on the adventure with me. I only have Instagram, I don't have Facebook or anything. And I asked my friends to come up with the handle, and they decided on Birdalowski, which I endorse. So I have my photos there. And I am more than happy to answer any questions. And I do personally want to thank Andy Birch. He was like my coach, my mentor through it all. bad days, good days. I did a lot of dipping that wasn't included here that I could talk about if you want to. It's kind of, and Andy was always there for me, and so many people in the community, you know, Desi and Logan and Frank. It's just incredible, the support. Once I started telling people, the support from the community was just incredible. So yeah, thank you all.
Fantastic, Van. That was wonderful. What an adventure. If you have any questions for Van, if you pop him in the Q&A down on the bottom of your screen, that'll help us keep track of them. And Van, you didn't tell us about sleeping in a Prius.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. I forgot to put that in.
How many times did you sleep in a Prius?
I'm going to say there were probably somewhere in the vicinity of 12 to 14 nights, maybe more. But I knew maybe more like 20 actually, because I couldn't, you know, I didn't want to spend money on hotels. Sleeping in a car, you wake up, you're on the scene. You know, and I had all my coffee stuff dialed in. And so I watched a lot of YouTube videos on how to sleep in your Prius. And there's like a whole community of, it really, like pre-RV, or there's a word for it. And there's like systems, and people are super into it. And ended up being where Walmart parking lots are like almost always the best spot, because they don't enforce the parking rules. A lot of them are open 24 hours. And there's a lot of, if you go to a Walmart at like 1 a.m, you'll see a lot of cars and people are sleeping in their cars. And so I was just, you know, doing that. And I got a really nice air mattress, really went hard on the air mattress. And that really saved it, and made custom blinds. It was, honestly, I slept some of the best nights of my life in that.
Wow.
That is really good. So you hit all the highlights. Oh, what was the low light? What was the big misses? What were the?
Well, yeah, I don't have pictures of the birds I missed.
Obviously,
kind of hard to include. But there were a lot of misses. You know, like Little Gull was seen in LA on a boat. I immediately got on a boat, tried to see it, didn't see it the next day. I couldn't find a chucker. I tried for chucker like 5 times, couldn't run into a chucker. So then I just gave up on chucker.
yeah.
You know, there's prairie warbler. At one point I was on the way chasing a prairie warbler way out in the desert. On my way, they found one in San Diego, but I kept going, and that one wasn't found as they were looking in San Diego. But then the next day I drove to San Diego, and that one was gone. So, I mean, like, devastating stuff. But I do have a list also that I'm happy to share of every species that I missed.
Wow.
Well, actually, if you forward that to me and all that, I'm sure we can arrange to have that on the website.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah. So we have some questions in the Q&A, and I want to, you know, I'll read them because people on the YouTube can't see them. So Lily asks, since you had a full-time job, did you mostly bird on weekends, or did you just make time?
So a full-time job was only until the layoffs, which were April. So in that first 4 months, and it was remote work from home, which helped. And so I could, you know, it was mainly before work, after work, on the weekends. There may have been a day, some of my former colleagues might be watching, but there may have been a day or two that I called in sick or something to go chase a bird. But in general, it was definitely a lot harder, obviously, you know, with a job. After that, it became a lot easier in that way.
Mm-hmm. Great. Pete asks, is big ear birding addictive? Are you going to do it again?
Definitely not doing a California big ear again. I mean, maybe like years and decades from now, but even then, it's so exhausting. By December 29th, 30th, I was like, oh my God. Waking up on January 1st and January 2nd and just being like, whoa, like
I'm done.
It really made me reappreciate, you know, all the birds locally, and I will never regret doing it. So one of the best, you know, most insane years of my life, but definitely not something that I'll do again at that level. Someone else is doing it now, you know.
Colin asks, inspiring story. Thank you. I love birding and love bird photography almost as much. Your shots are beautiful. What equipment do you use? And is it the same for video?
The camera is a Nikon D500, and with the Sigma 150 to 600 lens, kind of like your old safe, like that's like a pretty common combo that works for me. I haven't gone mirrorless yet. Not that I'm opposed to it, just haven't done it yet. But I really like my setup. And for video, I do, there's this company that's called PhoneScope, SKOPE. And you have to buy a new one each time you get a new phone, but it essentially goes on your phone and attaches perfectly to your specific scope. And you just dial something in on the scope, put your phone on it, and it's shockingly good quality sometimes, depending on that.
Cool. James asks, how many calls from National Geographic have you gotten for your beautiful photos? Are you working for them now?
Oh, James. Zero calls. My cell phone number is 805-909-9652. But thank you, James.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Let's see. Anybody else on any other questions?
I don't see anything else popping up. Lots of thank yous and wonderful stories. Desi points out that, Desi pointed out a couple of things. You were chasing a sketchy reported red-headed woodpecker in San Luis Obispo.
Yeah, oh my God, part of that journey, yeah, there was a different red-headed woodpecker reported the same day. And so we thought, but no documentation at all. But you know, it was like the same day, so thought, maybe, you know, who knows? But we got there, it was like 50 acorn woodpeckers. And you know, if you're not, the guy was from the East Coast that reported it, and it started to feel bad. And then we got reception that they refound the San Francisco bird, and we blessed. Desi and I got to know each other very well that day. I saw like, yeah, a bunch of great birds with Desi. So.
Yeah.
So how many times did you drive up to Humboldt or Del Norte?
Five, which is actually not that many.
That's not that many, but it's
I talked to other folks who did California big years, and it was up in the 9, 10, 11 range. I think keeping it to 4 to 5 is pretty good.
That's really good. Well, you got a lot of multiple birds per trip.
Yeah, exactly. I always try to combine it with stuff.
Yeah,
and there's cheap flights direct from Burbank. I only did that once, but it's good.
So all the others you drove from LA up. Wow.
That's right.
A long drive.
In the Prius, that I should point out, in like maybe in August, no, earlier, like June, every check engine light that you can imagine on the dashboard of a car came on. Like all of them. Check hybrid system, check engine, the tire pressure, the this, everything. And I took it into the mechanic. I was like, what do I do? And they're like, oh, it'll take you $5,000 million. And I was like, what if I just keep driving? They're like, who knows? No one's ever tried it. And so I just tried it, and it's still running. But I put I don't think about it.
Amazing. Calvin, so is a big year in your future?
I don't think a big year's in my future. I was wondering, Ben, the benefit of like hindsight, I guess. Is there anything you would change about your like strategy wise if you were to do it again, or knowing now what you know?
Totally. I mean, there's always like hindsight's 20/20, and it's like, but I would go for the like all the grouse and the game birds were so hard, and not doing that when they're vocalizing was not smart. Like, you got to get those when they're vocalizing, otherwise you're going to spend a lot more time. And maybe, there are some birds that I probably should have chased, but I thought there'd be another one that would show up and there wasn't. But, those are kind of more calculated decisions that you just take some losses. But that one, not going for the some of the grouses, that was just like a unforced error. I see Tori's a message in the chat. Tori had a red-faced warbler in her yard, and that was one that I missed, but spent an entire day dawn to dusk in her backyard, and was the only. We did see a Canada warbler randomly, which was the only one I saw all year. Same genus, so pretty wild. But yeah,
what was the bird that you dipped on the most number of times and then found?
Yeah, it's actually
any that you remember that you kept on trying
I had to think about it for like 1 second, and then it's like flooded back into my brain. But curlew sandpiper, that bird, there was one in Northern California, in the Bay Area, that was staying over the winter. So in January, that was on my list to go up and get, if everyone's seeing it, every time they go, everyone's seeing it. And so I go up there all the way, dawn to dusk, not there. A bunch of dun, a bunch of every stuff. Come back down. Then go all the way back. I did three trips from LA to San Francisco Bay Area and back. The mood, my bad mood, by the end of the third one, like, I'm sorry to all my friends. Like, I was in such a bad mood. But then I was on my way back down from Modoc County with my folks, and I thought, I wonder if that bird's going to show up again. No one's reported it. Well, let's just go and see. Probably not, but go and see. And no one's reported it. And I get there, get my scope out, blah, blah, blah. And within 5 minutes, I found the friggin' bird.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And you were able to show it to mom and dad.
Well, dad was asleep in the car, but mom saw it.
Well, that's
So that was
wonderful. That's great. So, so what stats do you have for the big year? How many tires did you go through on the Prius? How many Big Macs?
How many miles
on the Prius? How many?
I didn't figure the miles. I did figure that there were, like, I think 25 pelagic trips, somewhere between 20 and 25 pelagic boat trips.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Never changed any tires, although probably should.
Yeah.
Yeah, when the car gets that conditioning or like whatever. But yeah, I didn't add up the miles yet, but a lot.
Yeah. Well, Van, this was a wonderful presentation. Thank you very, very much for kind of helping us, sharing vicariously for us. Andy, was there, as the coach involved in the whole episode, do you have any parting words any comforting words for Van?
I don't think so. I was there with all the losses with him, but I get a lot of these late night WhatsApps, and I think that blue-footed booby was I sometimes read social media on the toilet, and he sent that photo through, and I literally jumped up, punched the air. Felt like it was there. I knew it was so important, that bird, like it was going to make the difference between hitting 500 or not. And so
Wow.
I think they all came back super seasick from that trip. So it was like incredible that they managed to pull that thing out of nowhere. That was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Poor Chefitos.
That was pretty awesome.
It was rough, but that's an amazing image, Andy. Thank you.
That was pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Van, once again, thank you very, very much for a wonderful evening, wonderful webinar. Everyone really enjoyed it, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was just so much fun, and you really expressed very clearly your love for all the birds, and that's just so wonderful.
They're amazing. Like, just like, birds exist in the world. They're animals that can fly and are always singing. Like, it could easily have not happened. And
Yeah, yeah.
it's the reality of the world, and it's just incredible. So like being able to just participate in a community that our main objective is literally just to observe them. We don't want to kill them. We don't want to do this. We just literally want to observe them. Like, it's just, I'm so grateful to be a part of this community. And yeah, y'all are great.
Thank you. Thank you, Van, for presenting. Thank you for being a part of this community. I see that some people, they're here for their first lab event. Go on to our website, labirders.org, check out past webinars, and join us on the field trip. And join us also next week when we have Tom Stevenson here also. That'll be a very exciting webinar. And with that, thank you all very much. Thank you, Mark and Calvin, Andy, and Susan and Frank. And especially to you, Van. We really appreciate the webinar.
Thank you, thank you. And Susan and Frank too. They were, I lost my binoculars at one point. I forgot to tell that story. They ended up being on the roof of my car, and Frank had to be the one to tell me that they were found smashed to pieces on the side of the road by Quail Lake. So they're with me through it as well.
Oh, wow. Wow, what a story. What a story. Anyways, thank you all very much, and we will see you all next week. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, Van.
Bye-bye now. Thanks again, Van.